I'm Owen Bigland. This is the Inside Edge video blog. Okay, I've talked many times about governments, NDP government, City of Vancouver over the last 5 years here, especially the City of Vancouver for the last 10 years, done everything they can to try and curb the demand. Do everything they can to stifle demand to help moderate housing. Vancouver empty homes tax, the vacancy tax. They make it extremely difficult for developers to work in this city, to get land secured, to get it through the zoning process, to get it past the NIMBYs, all that stuff before they can deliver a finished product. And I don't think a lot of people don't realize how difficult it is to build here. Now, I'll tell you an interesting story here. I follow a couple of real estate blogs down in the States, a couple in New York and some in Southern California. There was an interesting article on one of these talking about a project in downtown Los Angeles that's being built by Ani. Yes, that Ani, the same Ani that is based out of Vancouver here. And Ani as well as Boza have been building things down in the U.S. for a lot of years. They've been also really building in San Diego. But it was a story about Ani here, how they had bought a parcel of land in downtown Los Angeles. They bought it in 2016, and they just last week finally got the approval from the City of Los Angeles and the permits and everything else, and the approval to start on this. I think it's about a 35 or 40 story condo tower. And they were joking about saying, geez, this thing is still going to be another 3 years to build, maybe keys in 2024 or 2025. So, we're talking almost 9 years from the time they bought the land till the time maybe there could be more delays along the way, someone actually gets the key to their new condo. But in the comment section, there was a whole bunch of people that chimed in from Vancouver saying, hey, if you think Los Angeles is bad, hey, Ani's a Vancouver developer. They're used to it. And they are. Ani knows the process. They've cut their teeth here in Vancouver. Same thing with Boza. These guys know that it can, they were talking about if you want long delays, come up to Vancouver. And they're right. It's about the same length of time, 6, 7, 8 years. You've got to run this gauntlet known as Vancouver City Hall. Plus the money. I don't think people realize how much is going into each unit. I mean, a typical one-bedroom unit now, I hear, is approaching something like $175,000 in fees, in permits, in upgrades that the developer has to do. A two-bed is over $200,000. And this is why I often said that the city likes to do this sleight of hand stuff. They like to pretend that they're going to help you buy a house and they're going to curb demand by introducing, with the City of Vancouver, the vacancy tax. Or the NDP, of course, with the spec tax, or putting a cap on rent increases. The City of Vancouver sure continues to raise property taxes at double-digit rates as well. They take your mind off, or your eyes off, where the big money is going. And, I think it's time that people start really taking a look at this. We've been trying to curb demand here for decades in the form of various taxes and restrictions. Maybe, I'm just saying, why don't we give it a couple of years and see what an increased supply, greenlighting more development might do, and cutting all the fees and red tape at City Hall. The reason is because, City Hall is drunk on this revenue. That's the problem we've got here, what we've got ourselves into. They're spending, I think, somewhere like $1 million a day just on the downtown east side. It's crazy. But the other thing I'll say, and I blogged about this a few weeks ago, about how I'm still seeing people wanting the government to continue to step in to try and curb demand in this city. I don't know what they want them to do because, just so people know and put it into context, the condo market, which has been quite good here now for the last 3 months, and this is the way condo market goes. It could tread water for a couple years, go down 5% over a few years, and then it might take a leg up for the next 18 months of 10 or 15%. It tends to go in these jolts and then hibernates for a while. So here we are 3 months into the condo market turning, and they already want government to step in and help curb prices. Well, I don't know if a lot of people realize that we are now in the condo market just getting back in some cases to what the prices were in 2017. I've had many deals here that I bought where people have bought in late 2016, 2017, that they're being sold at basically what they paid for them. And that's why I always tell people, if you're going to buy a condo, Look at it as a marriage. It's a long-term commitment, 8 to 10-year minimum, or hopefully longer. If you've got to sell a condo in 2 or 3 years after you buy it, there is a good chance that you're going to lose money on it, especially when you take into consideration all your friction costs, your property transfer tax, which is the biggest tax grab going, and then all your commissions and everything else selling it. So I find it kind of funny where a lot of people have had many deals already this year where the seller bought in 2017 and he's actually losing a little bit of money on it. Yet we've got people up in arms here now saying that prices are out of control and we need you, Mr. Government, to come in and step in and help us. Other thing on this topic, a couple more things. Talking to a East Side developer, this is a smaller developer. They tend to do stat townhomes, small condo developments, maybe 40, 50 units, mostly in the East Side. Because I've got a couple of clients, I'm not involved in these, in some land assemblies. And I've told you guys about this before. I was blogging about this back a couple of years ago, as well as during COVID. How developers have been on the sidelines for a long time here. And that's why I've been talking about the coiled spring effect. How market's hot now, but we're not going to turn the spigot on for new supply anytime soon. Developers now are finally starting to kind of come out of hibernation again here. And they're starting to get back into buying some land assemblies. But I can tell you, by the time they secure the land, get all the zoning and permits and everything else done, and then build it, it's still 3 years away. And that's why I call it the coiled spring effect. Demand is starting to come up again. We're going to open the borders here eventually. More immigration coming in, and we're going to be caught with our pants down. It's going to be 3 or 4 years before we're going to get any more inventory in there because the developers have been on the sidelines for 2 years. But talking to just a developer just offhand about a land assembly over in the Renfrew area, he was telling me about a project at Renfrew and Grant. I believe it's called Ella. And, they've now sold this project out. But he was telling me how hard it was, to get the sales center going. He was telling me how they wanted to open up an actual physical sales center on the corner down the street, but weren't able to. So they had to think outside the box. They actually apparently did their display center in a converted food truck and were able to sell the project out. So that's the kind of little things, that the city just throws roadblock after roadblock on these developers. Now, don't get me wrong, the developers make good money, although in this case, from what I read on through a couple of blogs, a lot of times, they're making between 15 and 20% if everything goes right. And, it's a long process, 3-4 years from the time they secure the land, go through that gauntlet known as City Hall, build it, and then sell it. So, the profit margins aren't obscene. I think it's less than people think because so much of that money is going directly to City Hall in the form of zoning and permits and legal fees and everything else to get these projects built. So the developers, sure, they make a decent return on this, but it's not, I don't think, nearly as much as people think because the city's got their hands out big time for most of these developers. I'm Owen Bigland. As always, thanks for watching. I'll see you next week.